Before we begin, subscribe now, because what you are about to learn can feed you for the next 20 years, from your own backyard. And almost no one is doing this. Most people believe they are growing food, but they are not. They are repeating a cycle, a system that was never designed to make them independent. Every year it starts the same way. You prepare the soil, you buy seeds, you plant, and for a moment, it feels like progress. Then comes the maintenance, watering, weeding, protecting. You invest time, energy, attention, every single day, and then finally, you harvest. A few vegetables, some greens, maybe enough to feel proud. But then something happens. Everything dies. The system resets. And next year, you start again. From zero. This is not food security. This is dependency disguised as productivity. Because while you are repeating this cycle, you are not building anything that lasts. You are not planting assets. You are producing temporary results. And here is the part most people never think about. Every year you follow this model, you lose something you will never recover. Time. Because real food security is not built in a season. It is built over years. While you are replanting your garden again and again, you could be growing something that feeds you, without restarting every year. But that requires a different way of thinking. Not seasonal thinking, generational thinking. A garden feeds you for months. A system feeds you for decades. And that system already exists. It is called a food forest, a structure inspired by nature itself, where plants do not compete. They cooperate, where everything grows in layers, and nothing is wasted. Once established, it does not need to be rebuilt. It improves over time. Less work, more production, every year. But here is where most people fail. They hear about food forests, and they try to copy the idea, without understanding the structure. They plant everything at once. Trees, shrubs, plants, all mixed together. And for a moment, it looks promising. But within a few years, it collapses. Because a food forest is not random. It is engineered. It follows rules, timing, spacing, structure. Ignore those rules, and the system fails. And there is one mistake, more expensive than all the others. Waiting. Waiting for spring. Waiting for the perfect moment. Waiting until everything feels right. But that moment never comes. Because the system does not begin in spring. It begins in winter, in the cold, when everything looks dead, when the ground feels wrong. This is where most people stop. Not because they cannot do it, but because it feels wrong. Planting something in the cold looks like a mistake. A bare root tree looks like nothing, just a stick. No leaves, no life, no proof. And your mind tells you, wait. But that voice is the reason most people never build anything lasting. Because the people who succeed do something different. They plant when others hesitate. They act before it looks obvious. And that decision changes everything. A tree planted this winter starts growing before spring even arrives. Its roots establish early, deep, strong, resilient. By the time spring comes, it is already ahead. But a tree planted later will always be behind. That difference is not small. It is one full year of production gone. And here is the truth. Every year you delay pushes your future harvest further away. This is not about gardening. This is about time. Because once you understand this, you stop asking, what should I plant this year? And you start asking, what will still be feeding me 10 years from now? That is the shift. From consumer to producer. From effort to system. From temporary to permanent. And once you make that shift, everything changes. In the next part, I will show you the exact structure, the 7-tree system, that turns a simple backyard into a food-producing ecosystem. That works for you. For the next 20 years. Most people fail before they even begin. Not because they lack effort, but because they lack structure. They plant randomly. They mix species. They follow intuition. And they create chaos. But a real food forest is not random. It is designed. And everything begins with one principle. You do not grow food in rows. You grow food in layers. Instead of spreading plants across the ground, you stack them vertically, just like a natural forest. Different heights, different roles, same space. This is how you multiply production, without needing more land. And this entire system is built using just 7 trees. Not 50, not 100. 7. Each one placed with intention, each one serving a specific role. Together, they form a living system. The first layer is the canopy. These are the dominant trees, the long-term producers, the structure of your system. There are 3 of them: apple, pear, plum. These trees will eventually rise above everything else, forming the upper level of your forest. But here is where most people make a critical mistake. They choose the wrong trees. Not the species, the size. If you plant full-size trees, they will grow too large. They will block the sunlight, and everything below them will die. So there is a rule. You must use semi-dwarf rootstock. This keeps the trees at a controlled height, strong, productive, but manageable. It allows light to pass through, and that light is what feeds the entire system. Without it, everything collapses. The second layer is the understory. These are smaller trees, placed below the canopy. They fill the space that would otherwise be empty. There are 2 of them: dwarf cherry, hazel. The cherry gives you fruit earlier, faster returns. The hazel adds something different: nuts, structure, diversity. Together, they strengthen the system. They do not compete with the canopy. They complement it. And then comes the final layer, the ground layer. This is where the system comes alive. Early, because these plants produce first, before the trees mature. There are 2 types: currants, gooseberries, small, hardy, fast-growing. They occupy the lowest level, covering the soil, protecting it, retaining moisture, and most importantly, producing food, while everything else is still growing. This is the secret. Production in stages. You do not wait years for results. You start harvesting early, and that changes everything, because most people quit before results appear. But this system keeps you motivated. It shows progress fast and builds momentum. Now look at the full structure. 3 canopy trees, 2 understory trees, 2 ground producers, 7 elements, 1 system, all sharing the same space, all working together, not competing, but cooperating. This is not gardening. This is design. And when done correctly, this system becomes something powerful. A machine, turning sunlight, water, and soil into food. For decades. But there is still something missing, because knowing what to plant is not enough. Most people fail, not in structure, but in execution. They plant everything at once. They rush the process, and they destroy the system before it even begins. Because timing is everything. In the next part, I will show you exactly when to plant, how to plant, and why doing it at the wrong time can delay your harvest by years. Most people think success comes from effort, but in this system, effort is not the deciding factor. Timing is. You can plant the right trees in the right place with the right structure and still fail because you planted at the wrong time. This is where almost everyone makes the biggest mistake. They wait for spring. It feels logical. Warm weather, green leaves, perfect conditions. But that is exactly why it is wrong. Because by spring, the tree is already awake. And when you plant an awake tree, you create stress. The roots are not ready. The system is not stable. And growth slows down. But when you plant in winter, everything changes. Because the tree is dormant. It is resting. And that is when you move it. Not when it is active, but when it is asleep. This is the first law. Plant during dormancy. In most climates, that means February. Cold soil, low activity, high moisture, perfect conditions for roots to establish. While nothing is happening above the ground, everything is happening below. The roots grow first, and when spring arrives, the tree is already prepared, already established, already ahead. That advantage cannot be replicated later. This is not a small detail. It is the difference between a tree that struggles and a tree that thrives. The second law is spacing. Most people plant too close. They think closer means more production, but it creates competition. Roots fight for nutrients, leaves fight for light, and one plant always loses. In this system, you do the opposite. You plant with intention. The canopy trees must be spaced apart, about 16 feet between them, not randomly, but forming a structure, a triangle. This creates balance. It allows sunlight to reach every level, and sunlight is the fuel of the entire system. If light cannot reach the lower layers, they stop producing, and the system breaks. Spacing is not empty space. It is functional space. The third law is rootstock. And this is where most people fail. Without even realizing it, they buy trees without understanding what they are buying. Because two identical trees can behave completely differently, not because of the fruit, but because of the root. Rootstock determines size, growth speed, and control. If you choose the wrong one, your system becomes uncontrollable. A tree that grows too large will dominate everything, blocking light, killing productivity below, destroying the balance. That is why this is not optional. You must use semi-dwarf rootstock, not full size, not random. Controlled growth is what keeps the system alive. These three laws are non-negotiable. Break one, and the system weakens. Break all three, and it fails. And here is what most people do. They ignore timing. They ignore spacing. They ignore rootstock. And then they say, food forests do not work. But the system was never the problem. The execution was. Now that you understand the rules, we can build it, step by step. Because this is not something you guess. It is something you follow. In the next part, I will show you exactly how to plant the first 3 trees, where to place them, how to prepare the soil, and what to do in the first weeks. That determines the next 20 years. This is where it becomes real. Now everything becomes real, because understanding the system is not enough. Execution is what creates the result, and the first phase is the most important of all, because this is where most people rush, and that is why they fail. This phase is the canopy layer, the foundation of everything that comes next. If this step is weak, the entire system collapses later. So this is where you slow down, not speed up. This begins in the first week of February, not later, not when it feels better. Now, you will mark 3 points in your backyard, not randomly, with intention. These 3 points form a triangle, each one about 16 feet apart. This is your structure. This is your frame. Now you prepare the ground. You dig 3 holes, each one wider than you think is necessary. Not deep, wide. Because roots expand outward, not just downward. As you dig, separate the soil. Topsoil on one side, subsoil on the other. This matters, because soil is not uniform. The top layer is alive. The deeper layer is not. Now at the bottom of each hole, you create a base, a small layer of stones, for drainage, and a shovel of compost, not to feed the tree immediately, but to feed the life in the soil. Because the soil feeds the tree, not the compost directly. Now the trees arrive. They will not look impressive. No leaves, no branches full of life, just bare root trees. They look like sticks. And this is the moment where doubt appears. This is where most people hesitate. But this is exactly right. Before planting, you soak the roots in water for a few hours, rehydrating them, preparing them. Now you place the tree in the center of the hole, but not directly on flat soil. You build a small mound of topsoil and spread the roots over it, like a natural structure. Now there is one detail you cannot ignore. The graft union, that small swollen part, near the base of the trunk. It must stay above the soil, about 4 inches. If you bury it, you lose control of the tree, and the system breaks. Now you fill the hole, gently, using the topsoil first, pressing lightly, not compacting too much, then finishing with the rest. You leave a small depression around the tree to hold water, and then you water deeply, not a little, a full soak, around 5 gallons. Because this is not surface watering, you are reaching the roots. Now the final step, mulch, heavy mulch, straw, wood chips, about 8 inches, but never touching the trunk, because moisture near the trunk creates rot. This mulch locks in moisture, protects the soil, and feeds life below. Now comes the hardest part, doing almost nothing. For the rest of the first year, you wait. You water only if needed, once a week. If there is no rain, and that is it. No constant interference. No overcorrection. Because you are not growing a tree. You are growing roots. Invisible, but essential. By the end of year 1, you will see something small. 3 young trees. Nothing impressive. And this is where many people get discouraged, because they expected more. But what they do not see is what matters most. Below the surface, a deep, resilient root system, and that is what will support everything. For the next 20 years, most people fail because they rush this phase. They expect fast growth, fast results, but speed is not the goal. Stability is, because once the foundation is strong, everything else accelerates. In the next part, we complete the system, adding the second and third layers, and this is where the first harvest begins. This is where the system starts paying you back. Now the system begins to come alive, because what you planted is no longer just structure, it starts producing. This is year 2, and this is where most people finally understand that the system works. In February of the 2nd year, you add the next layer, the understory. Now your canopy trees are already established, not fully grown, but stable, and that stability is what allows expansion. You plant 2 new trees, a dwarf cherry and a hazel. They are placed between the canopy trees, not too close, about 8 to 10 feet away. This positioning is critical, because now you are filling space without creating competition. The process is the same. Dig, prepare, plant, water, mulch. No shortcuts, because consistency builds the system. Now something interesting happens. Time compresses, because while the canopy trees continue growing slowly, the understory begins to respond faster, and this creates something powerful. Early feedback. In the 2nd year, you may already see small signs, growth, leaves, structure, and sometimes even the first fruits. Not much, but enough. Enough to prove that the system is working. And that changes everything. Because most people quit before results appear. But now, you see progress. And progress creates momentum. Now we move to year 3. This is where the system accelerates. In February, you add the final layer, the ground layer. This is where production begins. For real. You plant currants and gooseberries, small shrubs, but extremely productive. They are placed in the gaps, 4 to 6 feet apart, covering the soil, protecting it, and transforming empty space into yield. This layer does something critical. It produces early, while everything else is still growing. By the summer of year 3, you are already harvesting berries, fresh, from your backyard. And this is the moment everything changes, because now, you are no longer waiting. You are collecting. Now fast forward. Year 5. The canopy trees begin producing real harvests, apples, pears, plums. Now the system is complete. 3 layers, working together, producing at different times, different speeds, different heights. One system. And from this point, something incredible happens. The work decreases, but the production increases every year. Because this is not a static system. It improves. The roots go deeper. The soil becomes richer. The ecosystem stabilizes. And you do less, while harvesting more. Now let's talk about the real return. Because most people think in money. But this goes beyond that. Yes. A small investment in 7 trees can generate hundreds, even thousands, in food every year, for decades. But that is not the real value. The real return is independence. It is walking into your backyard and picking your own food. It is knowing that no matter what happens outside, you still produce. It is breaking your dependence on a system you do not control. It is replacing consumption with creation. And there is something else, something harder to measure. The moment you pick fruit from a tree you planted as a stick, you understand. You built something that lasts, something that will outlive the effort you put into it. This is not gardening. This is infrastructure for your future, for your family, for your independence. And now, you have a choice. You can keep repeating the same cycle every year, or you can start building something that compounds, something that grows, even when you are not working. So if you are ready to stop renting your food and start producing it, plant your first trees this February, and in 3 years, you will not need motivation. You will have results. Subscribe, because in the next videos, we go deeper, from food systems to full self-sufficiency, one decision at a time.